The wind howled across the crystal plains of Valari Prime as ancient towers shimmered under the pale twin moons. High above, dark shapes moved like ghosts through the clouds. They weren't clouds, though. They were ships. Warships. The Threx. Dominion had come. For weeks now, the skies had turned darker. Villages vanished overnight. People fled into the mountains, hiding in caves that once held songs and sacred light. What used to be a world of peace and wisdom was now a battlefield. And for the Valeria soft-spoken, graceful, non-violent beings there was no chance of survival. Their temples weren't made for war. Leaders weren't trained in defense. They had always believed that wisdom would protect them. They were wrong. Inside the last functioning signal tower, 6 Valari elders stood around a glowing platform. Their robes were torn, their eyes red, but their voices remained calm. Elder Varel, oldest among them, placed a trembling hand over the crystal relay. His fingers brushed the ancient symbols. For centuries, this beacon had not been touched. Was meant only for the most desperate time. That time had come. "We must call the Galactic Assembly," said one elder. "They will not come," Virel answered, his voice heavy. "They fear the Threx, just as we do." "Then who?" whispered another. There was silence. Then Virel closed his eyes. "There is one system. One world the Assembly warned us never to contact. One place buried in silence." "No," another elder gasped. "You mean Earth?" "Yes," Virel replied. "They are called Deathworlders, creatures of violence. But if anyone can stop the Threx, it is them. And if they kill us instead, we are no worse than dead already." One by one, the elders bowed their heads, and Virel pressed the signal. A soft hum spread through the tower as the message launched into the black void beyond. It was not long, not poetic, just a pulse and a whisper to any who hear us. "Help us, please. We are dying." The crystal cracked under the pressure, and the tower went dark, far above the planet. Threx warships began to descend, and the Valari waited for a miracle or death, deep in a sector ignored by the Galactic Council. A silent satellite caught a foreign signal. It bounced the message through 7 black relays. Then it hit Earth. Not the Earth of legends. It's not the green-blue gem from old stories. This Earth was cold, armored, quiet, covered in steel satellites and cloaked in firewalls that reached into deep space. When the signal arrived, the AI that guarded Earth's gate blinked. Then it paused. It replayed the message. And for the first time in years, it forwarded it, not to a politician, not to a peacekeeper, but to a man named Commander Dax Holt, buried in a dark hangar on Titan's 3rd moon. Holt looked up from his worn-out gloves. He had been waiting for something like this. The Deathworlders had been silent too long. "Pack the team," he said quietly. "We got a distress call." 3 days later, the sky above Valari Prime split open. At first, the Valari thought it was another Threx ship. But this vessel was different. Small, sleek, black as night. It made no sound, no greeting, simply moved. The Threx detected it. Two of their warships turned and approached it, scanning for weapons. They found nothing, no shields, no heat signature. They fired. The black ship vanished in a blink. Cand reappeared behind the Threx cruisers. 1 heartbeat later, the warships exploded in silence, their pieces falling like ash. Over the mountains, the black ship didn't speak. It simply landed, and from its open hatch stepped 5 figures. They wore black armor that looked melted at the edges, their faces hidden under glass masks. No banners. No names. No insignias, just presence heavy. Final. The Valari watchers, those brave enough to get close, shook with fear. One whispered, "What are they?" Another answered, "Deathworlders." And they were right, but not even they could imagine what kind of Deathworlders had arrived. The Valari leaders met the humans inside a hidden underground vault, surrounded by glowing walls of memory stone. The humans said nothing at first. They simply listened as Virel explained the state of their world, the cruelty of the Threx, the betrayal of the Galactic Council. One of the humans, a tall woman with a deep scar across her neck, leaned forward and asked a single question. "Do you want us to save you?" Virel nodded. "Yes, please. We are peaceful people. We offer you our respect. We have little else." The human tilted her head. "Peaceful." Then she looked at the others. "Heard them. Not soldiers, not fighters, just survivors." Another humana, massive man with silver eyes, smiled for the first time. "It wasn't warm, it was hungry," finally he muttered. "A real enemy, and no bureaucrats to stop us." Virel felt a cold chill run through his bones. These were not heroes. They were something else. Something that made even the Threx seem tame. But it was too late to turn back. Earth had answered. And Deathworlders don't arrive to negotiate. They come to end things. The ship sat like a black wound in the white crystal plains of Valari Prime. It didn't shimmer like Threx steel, didn't hum with energy like council ships, didn't speak, didn't move, didn't blink. It simply existed, quiet, dark, and waiting. For the Valari, it was like a storm had landed and held its breath. But what came out of that storm was worse than the silence at first. It was just 5 of them, 5 humans, each one different in shape and armor, but all carrying the same energy. Not rage, not chaos. Something deeper, something colder. The kind of calm that only comes from people who have seen too much and still kept walking. They didn't smile. They didn't ask for help. They didn't ask for names. They came to look, to study the battlefield. The leader, Commander Dax Holt, stepped through the high crystal gates of the Valerius Last City with slow, deliberate steps. His armor was marked with old scar slashes, bullet burns, and one deep gash across the chest where something had nearly killed him. Nearly. He walked past children hiding behind their mothers. He walked past injured Valari lying in quiet recovery rooms. He didn't react. Only when he reached the war table in the temple did he speak. "What do we know about the Threx positions?" The Valari generals, those few who still wore the rank, looked at each other in silence. One elder General Solari stepped forward and tried to answer. "They hold the skies. They have walkers' beasts, machines. We can't tell the difference." "The ground. Our cities fall every night." "Numbers?" Holt asked. "We stopped counting. Didn't matter." One of the other humans, the woman with the scarred neck calcine, Echo let out a quiet exhale. Not a sigh. Just control. Like she was checking her temperature before the kill. "No planetary defenses?" she asked. Solari shook his head. We never built any. We never thought anyone would want to destroy us." The humans didn't laugh. They didn't smile. Dax Holt only nodded, and now they do. Then he stepped to the war table. "Then we'll build a defense line. You'll evacuate the children and the elders into the southern caves. Lock those gates. Don't open them unless you hear my voice." Solari frowned. "What are you planning to do?" The man known as Ash, a massive figure with thick armor and a metal plate over half his skull, grinned. "What we were born for." The humans moved like no one the Valari had ever seen. They didn't talk much. They didn't argue. They didn't ask for orders. They simply acted. They built turrets from broken farming machines. They turned communication towers into jammers. They hacked into fallen Threx drones, used the enemy's tech against them, and they didn't sleep. They took turns to awake, 3 watching. They ate in silence. They trained without pause. When a Valari engineer offered help, one human looked at him and said gently, "Stay with your people." This gets loud. It was strange, terrifying, mesmerizing. Commander Holt stood on the edge of the mountain pass on the 3rd night and watched the Threx army advance from the valley. Their walkers glowed like red shadows in the mist. Thousands of them, bigger than anything humans had faced on Earth. But Holt didn't flinch. He just whispered into his cum. "First contact in 60. All teams. Execute Havoc Pattern 7. Make it fast. Make it dirty." From behind the ridge, Echo slipped down the slope with 2 magnetic mines in each hand. She didn't move like a soldier. She moved like a shadow with a mission. By the time the Threx walkers reached the choke point, it was already too late. The mines exploded, not with fire, but with an electric pulse that melted command nodes inside. The beast's 3 machines dropped instantly, twitching. 4 more stumbled, confused. The Threx soldiers inside didn't understand what had hit them. Then Ash fired, and everything became chaos. The Volari watched from hidden bunkers as the first real battle began. They had seen their cities burn. They had watched their own people fall to Threx blades. But this was something else. This was war. Earth-style. Humans didn't fight clean. They didn't march in lines. They didn't chant orders or blow trumpets. They used smoke, traps, ambushes. They struck from above, from below, from inside their own lines. When Threx soldiers sent reinforcements, the humans looped their coms and sent fake orders. The Threx turned on each other. When Threx commanders launched bombing drones, the humans shot them down with harpoons, not missiles. Just sharpened rods of metal launched from the ground. "They don't follow the rules," whispered a Velari boy watching the battle unfold on a stolen drone cam. "They don't have rules," said his father. "They've only victory." By morning, the mountain pass was filled with Threx bodies. The humans stood silent in the fog. One of them, Hayes, knelt beside a fallen Volari body and closed its eyes gently. He whispered something the others couldn't hear. Then they moved on. No trophies, no celebration, just silence and preparation for the next fight. Later that day, Commander Holt spoke with Elder Varel in the deep chambers of the memory hall. "You don't fight like soldiers," Varel said, his voice soft, almost broken. "You fight like survivors," Holt offered. Varel nodded. The commander looked at him without blinking. "Earth raised us on poison air, burning skies, and oceans that tried to kill us. Everything wanted us dead. We adapted, and we don't ask why something hunts us. We ask how to hunt it first." Varel lowered his head. "I understand now why the galaxy feared you. They were right too," Holt said. "But we're not here to conquer. You asked for help. You got us." Then he walked out, leaving the old Volari staring at the crystal walls, wondering if they had truly been saved, or if something much more dangerous had just been unleashed. The fires in the mountain pass still burned by the time the Volari began returning from their caves. They stepped carefully over shattered walkers and crushed drone shells, their crystal blue eyes wide with fear and wonder. The battlefield was silent now. The screams had ended. What remained were scorched marks in the ground, strange human tools buried in broken Threx armor, and a question burning inside every Volari mind. Who were these creatures who fought with such fury and walked away without a sound? Corlana, young Volari healer, wandered the edges of the battlefield alone. He had never seen real war. His people were born to nurture life, not end it. He had always believed that wisdom, calm, and diplomacy could stop any conflict. But this was something else. The ground smelled of metal and blood. The air tasted sharp and hot. The humans Earth's so-called Deathworlders had not fought like defenders. They had fought like predators. That evening, Orlan returned to the underground base hidden deep in the mountains, where the humans had set up their command center. He had been assigned as their translator, not because they needed language help. They spoke perfect Galactic Common, but because the Volari leaders wanted someone to observe them, to understand them, to find out what Earth truly was. Inside the base, the humans worked with machine focus. No chatting, no wasted movement. One of them, Mako, was stripping down a damaged drone with a knife no larger than her palm, cutting wires with quiet precision. Another, Ash, was reinforcing a wall with salvaged Threx armor, welding metal with sparks flying over his shoulder. He barely blinked as the heat hit his exposed skin. He seemed more machine than man, but it was the leader, Commander Dax Holt, who drew Corlan's attention. Holt stood at the center table, staring down at a map made of projected terrain and pulsing enemy locations. He didn't move. He didn't speak. Just watched like a storm trapped in human skin, calculating. How to tear apart the next Threx command post. Corlin approached carefully. Commander Holt. The man didn't look up. Speak, I've been asked to observe. To understand your nature, observation is allowed. Judgment is. Not Corlin swallowed. What does that mean? Now Holt looked up. And for the first time, Corlin saw his eyes. Not red, not glowing, not alien, just human, but old, not in age, in experience. As if every blink held a war. You asked for help, Holt said, his voice low and calm. Help is never clean. Help is never kind. If you wanted gentle hands, you called the wrong species. I don't understand, Corlin said honestly. You kill with no mercy. You burn without pause. But you protected us. Why? Holt turned fully toward him. Because we remember being weak. We remember being hunted. Earth is a death world. Corlin, everything on our planet was stronger, faster, more cruel than us, so we adapted. We learned to fight like nothing else. We learned to become what we feared. But you enjoy it. Holt paused. The room went still. No, he said softly. We don't enjoy war. We're just better at it than peace. Then he turned back to the map, and the conversation was over that night. Corlin sat in the shadows and watched them eat. They didn't use tables. They didn't sit. They stood in a circle, facing outward, armor still on. Their food was ration. Paste, cold, gray, tasteless. They ate in silence. Each bite measured. No conversation. No waste. One of the younger Deathworlders, a woman with cybernetic fingers named Wisp, suddenly froze. She tilted her head, listened, then whispered sound. Northridge, 8 seconds. Every human moved instantly, not with panic, but with lethal grace. Wisp raised her rifle. Ash pulled Corlin. Behind a wall, Holt stepped into the shadows and vanished. 7 seconds later, a scout drone dropped from the cliff above, scanning the entrance. It never finished its scan. A small dart hit its eye and short-circuited its systems. Before it even sent an alert, Echo retrieved the drone. Body without a word, the humans returned to their positions. The meal continued. Corlin didn't speak again for hours later. In the quiet of the med chamber, Corlin looked over injured Valari brought in from a nearby village. One of the human medics, Fletcher, they called him, stepped beside him. He was the only one who smiled. You've been staring at us all day, Fletcher said, wiping blood from his gloves. I'm trying to understand you. You and the rest of the galaxy. Why are you like this? Corlin asked. Why are you so sharp? Fletcher sat beside him. Earth made us that way. You've seen pictures, right? Oceans? Mountains, forests, pretty stuff. Corlin nodded. Fletcher, single quotes, eyes darkened. What you don't see are the storms that tear down cities, the predators that stalk you in the night, the diseases that wipe out families. Our world never gave us peace, so we stopped expecting it.
Oh, got it.
Whispered, then what do you fight for? The human smiled. Not wide, not kind, just enough. For the ones who can't. Then he walked away. By the next day, Corlin stopped trying to understand the humans. He started watching what they changed. Wherever they walked, the Valari stood taller. Wherever they fought, the Threx lost ground. Wherever they spoke, silence followed. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was respect. The galaxy had called Earth the last place to seek help, a planet of killers. Unfit for diplomacy, but the truth was clearer now. Earth didn't come to join the galaxy. It came to fix what the galaxy was too afraid to touch. And as Corlin watched, Holt and his Deathworlders planned the next assault. He realized something that sent a chill through his soul. They weren't here for politics. They weren't here for honor. They were here to win, no matter what it took. The sky over Valari's eastern ridge turned red just before midnight. Not from the sun, not from storms, but from fire. Threx fire. Their assault had begun. From high above, their dropships rained down like black needles, piercing through the clouds in perfect formation. The earth shook with every impact. Massive walkers, part machine and part beast, stomped across the crystal grasslands. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning for survivors. The attack was brutal, fast, and full of precision. The Threx had come not to conquer, but to erase. In the village of Sarale, there was no warning, just sound. Terrible grinding sound followed, by flame. Villari screamed and ran into the woods, clutching children, crying for elders, but there was nowhere to hide. The village had no weapons, no defenses, just memories. And memories don't stop bullets. The Threx entered like shadows tall, armored, faceless. Their language was static. Their guns hissed. They didn't ask questions. They didn't speak. They just fired within 6 minutes. The entire village of Saralai was gone, and Earth watched it happen. Commander Dax Holt stood before the blacked-out drone feed. His jaw was locked, eyes fixed. His team stood behind him, Miko Ash, Wisp, Fletcher. Silent Corlan entered the room. He had seen the smoke, felt the quake. What happened? They attacked the unprotected villages, Holt said coldly. No strategic value, just pain. Corlan's hands shook, said we were ready. Holt didn't look at him. We were ready for war, not murder. Stepped forward. Commander, give the order. Holt gave one nod, and the room came alive. The Deathworlders suited up in silence. No speeches, no flags, no music, just armor, weapons, and memory. They moved through the night like shadows with purpose. Their black ship lifted without sound, slipping into the clouds above the ruins of Saralai. From orbit, the Threx camp glowed bright against the dark terrain. Deploy at 400 meters out, Holt said through the comms. No drones, no air cover. This is personal. Echo checked her blades. Copy Wisp smiled for the first time. Let's show them what help really means. The ship opened its bay, and the Deathworlders dropped. They landed behind the enemy lines. 5 humans against nearly 200 Threx soldiers. But numbers meant nothing now. The Threx weren't ready for Earth's way of war. Wisp moved first, slashing through 2 drone pilots with a curved blade so fast it didn't make a sound. Echo rigged a plasma charge beneath the enemy's main power core and whispered into the dark. Light it. A second later, the entire western flank went dark. No sensors, no power, just fear. Ash stormed through the center path with 2 cannons strapped to his arms. Not elegant, not quiet, just raw destruction. He tore through Threx mechs like paper, Fletcher. The medic stayed at the rear, sniping from the high rocks with surgical precision. 1 bullet, 1 kill. Each shot a message. But it was Holt who delivered the truth. He moved through the camp. Not around. Not under through dot. He walked straight into the center like he belonged there when the Threx commander saw him. He ordered his guards forward. Holt didn't run. He pulled a small device from his belt, pressed it once, and every Threx rifle jammed. Confused. They tried to charge. They never made it, because by then, the Deathworlders had already surrounded them. In 15 minutes, the entire Threx strike force was gone, dead, disarmed, or too afraid to move. Not a single human had died. After the smoke cleared, Corlan walked through the enemy camp with Holt. The ground was littered with black metal and Threx bodies. Nothing moved. What did you do? Corlan asked, voice shaking. What we were sent to do, Holt said, wiping blood from his gloves. But how? The healer whispered. There were hundreds. Holt stopped and looked him in the eye. Because Earth trained us not to win wars. Earth trained us to end them. Corlan stepped over a still smoking wreck. You didn't take prisoners.
Out.
Time, Echo said as she passed, and no point. Corlan looked at them all, Ash sharpening his weapon, Wisp collecting enemy tech, Fletcher helping a wounded Villari child. Without speaking, they were human, but they were something more. Something terrifying, something necessary that night. The message spread across the galaxy, leaked drone footage. Burn Threx command lines, whispered reports. A single phrase echoed through shadow networks, and Bakshanal comes. Earth is back. And they were not the same. Governments watched in fear. mercenaries canceled contracts. Even some Threx commanders hesitated before their next move, because the Deathworlders had arrived, and they brought not just war, they brought Earth's fury. The images spread faster than any news network could control. It's faster than governments could silence. It's faster than the Threx could deny. Unfiltered drone footage, body cams, crashed satellite recordings, whispered stories from smugglers, traders, and frightened Threx scouts who managed to flee the battlefield with shaking hands and empty weapons. Every screen across the galaxy began to flash with the same terrifying visuals, not of fleets, not of bombs, not even of ships, but of humans. 5 of them moving through fire without fear, smiling as they fought, bleeding and still coming, and in every report, in every frame, one name echoed louder than war drums: Earth. Not the peaceful Earth the Galactic Council once rejected, not the backwater, Deathworld they left uninvited, but the one buried deep beneath silence and fear, the real Earth and the galaxy. Remembered what it had tried to forget. In the distant core worlds, council members gathered behind sealed walls, watching the footage over and over again. The Threx ambassador demanded reinforcements and labeled the humans as a rogue force. A mistake. A glitch. A small team acting outside of Earth's orders, but deep down, they all knew that was a lie. There was no such thing as a small Earth response. If 5 humans could erase an entire Threx company in one night, what would happen if Earth sent 100? Or 1,000? The Trade Guild voted to lock all Earth access beacons. The Security Union declared the humans tactically unstable. But in the darker corners of the galaxy, in places where law and light had never reached, they spoke differently. "They're back," said a bounty hunter on Yevers 9. "They're angry," whispered a black market data dealer. "They're hunting," growled a mercenary commander whose fleet once survived a human border skirmish. Once, and in a deep, shadowed chamber beneath a quiet moon, a lone strategist from the old wars simply leaned back, lit a flame, and said, "They should have left Earth alone." Back on Valari Prime, the Deathworlders didn't watch the news. They didn't read the Council's declarations. They didn't care, because they weren't here to make a statement. They were here to finish the mission. Corlin stood near the cliff edge, watching the smoke rise from what used to be a Threx outpost. The humans had taken it 3 hours ago. It's not by brute force, but by clever sabotage, false signals, psychological warfare. The Threx soldiers hadn't even fought back. They had surrendered, then begged. The humans left them alive, but stripped of their weapons and memories. "Why didn't you kill them?" Corlin asked Holt as they walked through the quiet ruins. "They weren't a threat anymore," the commander replied. "But you've killed others. Only the ones who choose war." Corlin frowned. Holt looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "We do," Corlin was silent for a long moment. "The galaxy is watching you. We know. You're not afraid of what they'll do?" Holt smiled, just a flicker of it. "They already did it. Years ago, they left Earth to rot. Locked us out, called us dangerous. We didn't come here for their permission. We came because someone asked for help." And he looked up at the stars. "And Earth remembers what it's like to ask for help and be ignored." Planet Ash was training Valari youths in close combat, not with human weapons, but with instincts. He didn't give speeches, he gave scars. "You can't beg a beast to stop," he told them. "You learn to bite back." Echo worked with resistance scouts, teaching them how to move without being seen, how to plant distractions, how to hack enemy. Comes with nothing but a wire and old power crystal. Fletcher spent time in a destroyed clinic, rebuilding it from broken drone parts and a med kit smaller than his hand. He treated children with quiet gentleness that didn't match his uniform, a paradox in motion. And Wisp, she disappeared for 3 days, returned with the heads of 2 Threx commanders. No, one asked where she'd been. They already knew by the end of the week. 10 more Threx bases fell. The Deathworlders didn't leave signs, didn't plant flags, didn't claim victories. They moved like fire burning, everything that threatened the Valeriand, then vanished before the smoke cleared. The Threx finally responded with full force, They sent 3 destroyers into the Volari. System all 3 exploded before reaching orbit. No one knew how. No one saw anything. Only Earth knew. Only they understood the message. You called for help. You got us now. Stand back and let us work. Back at the council chambers, a vote was called to sanction Earth, to label them a galactic threat, to prepare defensive fleets in case of future aggression. But as the vote passed, one young diplomat from a forgotten colony stood up and asked, "Before you declare war on Earth, have any of you tried talking to them?" The room went silent. No one dared, because Earth didn't send diplomats anymore. They sent Deathworlders. And now the galaxy feared one simple truth. Maybe the monsters they locked out were the ones they needed all along. The fires on Volari Prime had started to die, but the war was far from over. The Threx were pulling back not in defeat, but in confusion. Their weapons were strong, their soldiers many, yet every time they engaged the humans, they lost.
Did not.
Because of numbers, not because of tech. But because the humans fought like nothing they had ever faced. They didn't follow logic. They didn't follow rules. They followed something else. Something colder, sharper, deeper, and the galaxy began to wonder what made Earth's Deathworlders so dangerous. That question reached the Volari too. It burned in their minds like fire. Corlin, more than anyone, couldn't ignore it. He had watched them fight, heal, and vanish like shadows. He had seen them protect the weak with calm brutality. But he still didn't understand how they were made this way. He needed answers, and Commander Dax Holt knew it. It was late when Holt called Corlin into the mountain bunker. The room was quiet. Echo and Ash stood near the wall, silent as always. Fletcher cleaned his gear in the corner. Only Holt sat at the center, his face lit by a dim war map, not moving. "You want to understand us?" Holt said, not asking, stating. Corlin nodded. "I do." Holt didn't look up. "Why?" goes one day, Corlin said. "We'll have to explain to our children what we let loose upon the stars." The room went still. Ash chuckled darkly. Smart one. Echo leaned forward. "You sure you want the truth, healer? Most species don't." Corlin didn't flinch. "Yes, please." Holt finally stood. He reached toward the console and tapped a single code. The walls changed. The map vanished. In its place appeared a slow-scrolling archive. Earth images. Plutage.earth. Not the Earth, from council files. Not the clean version shown to students. This was raw, real. Storms that tore down entire cities. Animals that hunted with venom and claws. Volcanoes that swallowed whole nations. Ice that froze oceans. Deserts that scorched land for miles. Parasites. Earthquakes. Corlin blinked. "Your planet. It tries to kill you. Every day," Holt said. "And you survived?" "No," Holt said flatly. "We adapted." He swiped the display forward. New images came. Old wars. Civil unrest. Cities in flames. Not from aliens, from humans. Wars over water, oil, power, pride. Billions dead before the first rocket ever left the ground. "You weren't just shaped by nature," Corlin whispered. "You were shaped by each other." Ash nodded. "We weren't born warriors. We were forced to become them," Echo added. "That's why Earth is feared. Not because we fight, but because we learn from every war, and we never forget." Felt sick, but also awake. "How did you not destroy yourselves?" Fletcher, quiet until now, spoke gently. "We almost did. Many times. But something inside us, some stubborn fire, kept going. We lost, bled, broke. But we stood back up." Corlin stared at the data. "You built peace through pain." "No," Holt said. "We built strength through pain. Peace is something we protect with it." The next morning, Corlin stood outside the bunker, looking at the sunrise. He couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear. From realization. The galaxy had always viewed humans as unstable, unpredictable, dangerous. But maybe that was because the galaxy had never understood what survival really meant. The Council's peace was built on rules, meetings, silence. Earth's peace, built on ashes, and now that fire was spreading. Elsewhere in the system, Council observers tried to collect intel. Spy drones were sent, probes hidden in Volari orbit. Deep scans launched toward the human base. None returned. Every single drone crashed, every probe melted. One Council ship even went dark for 3 minutes. It's just enough time for its systems to reset with a new message on screen. We see you. Do not interfere. The Council debated launching sanctions again, but the room stayed quiet, because even the diplomats finally understood Deathworlders don't bluff. On the front lines, Threx tried a new tactic. They sent a diplomat, not a general, not a soldier, just a tall, pale envoy with soft eyes and smooth words. He approached the Volari forward camp under a white flag, speaking of surrender, peace, coexistence. But Earth intercepted the transmission first, and Commander Holt met him alone. The meeting was brief. The envoy smiled. We come to discuss terms. Holt handed him a data chip. The envoy inserted it. His face dropped on. The chip were 20 videos Threx commanders torturing Volari. Villages burned, children hunted, unarmed citizens executed. Holt stepped closer. Your terms mean nothing. You want peace? Surrender completely, or run. The envoy sneered. You're just soldiers. You don't speak for the galaxy. No, Holt said. We speak for the ones you silenced. He turned and walked away. Envoy never reached the Council. His ship vanished over a neutral moon. By week's end, the Deathworlders had driven the Threx off 3 more systems. No reinforcements came. No Council fleets dared intervene. The humans didn't gloat. They didn't wave banners or broadcast victory. They simply moved forward and left behind only this truth. Earth had not evolved for peace. Earth had evolved to survive. And now that survival was turned outward. The galaxy had no idea how to stop it. The stars above Volari Prime had never looked so quiet. But it was a silence that brought no comfort. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm, one that could tear apart planets, rewrite borders, and leave nothing behind but ashes. The Deathworlders stood on the edge of the coming war. The Threx were not retreating anymore. They were regrouping.
Yeah.
Their pride was shattered, their tactics exposed, their soldiers broken, but they were not done. Now, they planned to bring everything. All fleets, all fire. One final push to take Volari Prime and bury the memory of their losses under rubble. And Earth knew it. Commander Dax Holt stared into the sky, arms crossed, helmet under one hand. His team stood behind him, watching the slow movement of stars, the same stars where the Threx fleet now waited. Gathering strength, Ash slammed a thick weapon down on a crate. They're coming. Co checked the wall defenses she'd built by hand. We've got 12 hours, maybe less. Smiled, dark and tired. Let them come. But Holt didn't move. He just whispered, this is the one they want to. End us with Corlin standing nearby, swallowed hard. Then what will you do? Holt looked down at the Volari healer. What we always do. Survive. In orbit, the Threx fleet appeared like a black curtain across the stars. It wasn't just a battle group, it was an armada. It's hundreds of ships. Carriers, destroyers, cruisers, drones, harvesters, swarms. They weren't coming to win a battle. They were coming to end a species inside their flagship. Threx Supreme Marshal Vorak watched the final upload from one of his forward probes. A clear image of 5 humans standing on a ridgeline. Watching the stars, they look so small, he hissed. They always do, growled his second-in-command, until they start killing. Vorak clenched his claws. This time we bury them. On Volari Prime, the mountain base had become a fortress. It wasn't pretty. Earth never fought for beauty, but it was ready. Every corridor trapped, every tunnel wired, turrets hidden, blast walls reinforced. They even used parts of crashed Threx ships to build anti-air weapons. The Volari civilians were deep in the caves now, under the protection of automatic defense, fields and old Earth shields that pulsed like heartbeats in the rock. But on the surface, only one thing stood between the Threx and total conquest. 5 Deathworlders, and one planet that refused to die. Corlin watched as Holt walked through the camp, giving quiet orders. "What are you expecting?" he asked. Holt stopped. "Waves. First the drones, then the walkers, then the airstrikes. After that chaos, you think you'll survive it?" Holt's eyes narrowed. "We didn't come here to survive. We came to finish it." The siege began at midnight. No warning, just fire. The sky split open as drones rained down like burning stars. They came in waves, metallic, screaming fast. The first lines hit the outer defenses and exploded. The second wave cut through smoke and landed hard, crawling like insects with blades. But the humans were ready. Turrets roared to life. Snipers opened fire from camouflaged ridges. Wisp hacked into their formation mid-attack, turning half the swarm against the other. The first hour burned the fields black. The second hour turned the snow to steam. By the third hour, the air was thick with smoke, broken machines, and bodies. But the Threx didn't stop. They never stopped. That was their greatest weapon, and Earth knew that. 2 When the walkers came, giant armored beasts with missile heads and plasma bellies, the humans didn't wait. Ash took the front, launching himself at the first walker with a jetpack made from 2 salvaged Threx cores. He landed on its back, tore open a hatch, and dropped a core charge inside. The explosion lit up the valley like a second sunrise. Echo danced between legs, blades flashing, cutting control wires and slashing through armor joints. Fletcher coordinated air cover, redirecting drones with hacked codes and turning their own fire back on the enemy. Corlin watched from the ridge, stunned. They fight like they were born for this. One of the Volari beside him whispered, "They weren't born. They were forged." Halfway through the siege, the Threx launched their final card. An orbital drop weapon. It wasn't a bomb. It was a planet breaker. A tower of black metal, 2 kilometers long. Designed to pierce a planet's crust and unleash fire from its core. It screamed down through the atmosphere. Holt saw it, calculated, and gave the order. "All teams fall back to core bunker." "Intercepted here," Echo blinked. "Going to try to stop a drop weapon?" "No," Holt said. "We're going to ride it." They moved. Wisp used a jet glider to reach the weapon midair and attached a guidance hack before it. Breached the lower sky. Echo and Holt launched on intercept jets and boarded the weapon at terminal speed, riding the heat like demons made of steel. Inside, Holt planted the core charges. He looked at the countdown. 60 seconds. He smiled. "You shouldn't have come for this world." Then he jumped, and behind him, the weapon cracked apart in the sky like glass. The explosion brighter than any sun. The fire rained down, but Volari Prime didn't burn. It stood, because Earth stood with it. When the smoke cleared, the Threx fleet was in full retreat, not because they were outgunned, but because they had seen something terrifying. Earth's full intent. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to end threats completely. To make sure no species would ever feel what Earth once did, abandoned and alone. Corlin stood at the edge of the crater where the weapon fell, watching Holt walk out of the fire, armor cracked, blood on his shoulder. "You stopped it," Corlin whispered. Holt nodded. "Not yet." Corlin blinked. "There's more." Holt looked up at the stars. "They'll call us monsters for this. Maybe they're right. But monsters don't protect the weak. We do." The galaxy would remember this battle, not because Earth won, but because they made sure no one else could even try. Smoke still curled from the shattered mountains. Scorched air smelled of fire, metal, and blood. The sky, once full of firestorms and falling machines, now stretched empty, silent, still. No more Threx ships. No more orbital strikes. War machines screaming across the horizon. Just silence. Volari Prime was alive, but it had paid for it in fear, in fire and in something far more permanent. The Deathworlders had won, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Corlon stood at the edge of the crater where the last battle ended. His robes were torn, his face dirty. But his eyes were fixed on one thing: Commander Dax Holt, sitting quietly beside a wrecked Threx crawler. Helmet resting on the ground beside him, chest rising slowly with breath. Holt looked, not from the fight, not from the wounds, but from what came after. Corlon stepped forward. "It's over." Holt didn't look up. Behind them, the rest of the Deathworlders were scattered. Ash was silent, leaning against a smoking wall, arms crossed. His weapon lay beside him, disarmed for the first time in weeks. Echo sat on a boulder, fixing a cracked blade, her hands moving slow, mechanical, tired. Wisp stood near the trees, scanning the horizon with empty eyes, as if looking for enemies that no longer existed. Fletcher cleaned a wound on a small Volari child, not speaking, just working, gently, as if trying to put the pieces of a shattered world back together with nothing but bandages. The Deathworlders had no medals, no flags, no celebrations, just silence. Because Earth had taught them, victory was not the end. It was the beginning of what must be protected next. Across the galaxy, the Council met in panic. The Threx Empire had collapsed in less than one standard month. Humus 5 had broken a military machine that had lasted centuries. What was worse? Earth didn't make demands. They didn't claim territory. They didn't ask for payment. They simply left one Deathworlder fleet, seen briefly in orbit, retrieved the ground team in complete silence. No broadcast, no signal, no farewell. They took their warriors back and vanished into the dark again. No warning, no message, just this truth left behind. Call us again and we'll come. But don't expect mercy. Not ever again. Volari Prime tried to rebuild, with Earth's tech left behind. Healing was faster. The land began to breathe again. The forests grew. Children laughed. But the people, they would never forget. They built a monument on the edge of the last battlefield. A tall black stone, cracked down the middle like war had cut it in half. No statue, no grand image, just 5 words carved into the base. They came when no one else would. No names, no race, just the truth. Corlon eventually became an elder, a teacher, a historian. But his first lesson was always the same. He would tell the children the galaxy believed in peace. But peace is not a gift. Peace is a wall, and walls must be defended. And when the children asked who defended it best, Corlon would look out the window at the stars and whisper, the ones who were shaped by pain. The ones the galaxy once feared. The ones who came not to talk, but to fight. The Deathworlders. And somewhere, in the dark reaches of space, a no map and no directory of fleet waited in silence. Human ships, black, silent, armed, watching, waiting, because Earth knew the truth better than anyone. Peace only lives when monsters are ready to protect it, and the Deathworlders, they were always ready.